Welcome to the Riding Academy of New Jersey, the best place in New Jersey to learn how to ride a motorcycle, further develop your riding skills, and avoid a crash. This is a supplement to the Motorcycle Safety Foundation's basic e-course. Now you need to complete the basic e-course before attending the live online classroom session scheduled for this upcoming Tuesday night at 6 o'clock p.m. As you listen to this recording, write down any questions you have from doing the basic e-course, listening to this recording, and or about riding a motorcycle. You will get more out of this recording if you have already completed the basic e-course. My name is Dave Belizzi. I run the school. A lot of people call me by my nickname, Super Dave. We get a mixture of people who take the BRC1. We have those who have no experience riding a motorcycle and no experience driving a clutch vehicle. We get those who have no experience riding a motorcycle with some experience driving a clutch vehicle. And then we have those with some experience riding a motorcycle. And you probably have a combination of all three in your class. Having some clutch experience is an advantage since a motorcycle has a clutch. Now, you made a very wise decision by signing up for this course. Why? Well, many motorcycle crashes occur because riders are self-taught or taught by a friend or relative or by watching YouTube videos. They receive no formal training. And approximately 50% of all motorcycle riders are untrained. So this course will also help you to become a better car driver, hopefully. All of our professionally trained instructors are certified by the Motorcycle Safety Foundation and the state of New Jersey. One reason why we're the best motorcycle school in New Jersey is because we have the best instructors in the state. I kind of took Henry Ford's advice. I hired people that were smarter than me. To find out who the instructors will be for your class, you can go to the home page of our website, scroll down to the upcoming events under the dashboard section, and click the link to the instructor teaching schedule, and you'll be able to see who's been assigned to teach your class. You can also check out their credentials and background and mine on our website by clicking About Us, then clicking Our Team. Now, here's a question which we're often asked: which BRC class am I in? Well, if there is an AM after the class number you signed up for example, if you have BRC1 number 390 AM, you are in the AM weekend morning class. It's also mentioned in the 3 reminder emails that you got. Now, if there's a PM after the class number you signed up for, like maybe BRC1 number 390 PM, you're in the PM weekend afternoon class. And again, that was also sent out in the 3 reminder emails. And if there's a WD after the class number you signed up for, you are in the Thursday and Friday morning weekday class. Again, also mentioned in the 3 reminder emails. So double check your confirmation documents to make sure which class you are in. Read the event description. Most people don't read thoroughly. They just kind of skim and scan. The format of the course: our mission is helping to reduce motorcycle crashes in the state of New Jersey, and our priority is the safety of our students. So we offer the Motorcycle Safety Foundation's full, complete, comprehensive version of the BRC1, which is a 3-day, 18-hour course that consists of 4 modules or parts. The first module, which you should have already done, is a 3 to 4 hour online course. It's called the Basic e-course, which familiarizes you with some of the physical and non-physical skills needed to ride a motorcycle safely. Second module, which is actually this PowerPoint presentation supplement that we added, which explains the course format, the course rules and guidelines, and goes into the 4 basic physical riding skills in further detail. We kind of added this supplement to help those who have no experience riding a motorcycle. Third module is a 3 to 4 hour live online classroom session with some activities, discussions, and reviews, and that's Tuesday night at 6 o'clock p.m. Fourth module is the 10 hours of practice riding, and if you're taking the BRC1, that's 5 hours per day for 2 days. If you're taking the BRC2, that's 5 hours of practice riding on your own motorcycle. BRC2 is one of our advanced courses. It's also a license waiver course for those people who already have a motorcycle. We'll get into detail with that later. Now, Let's talk about the AM or the weekday class schedule. The classroom session, again, is Tuesday night from 6 o'clock to approximately 10 o'clock. If you're in the AM class, again, if you have the AM after your class number, the AM class starts the practice writing exercises Saturday morning at the writing range from 7:30 a.m. to about 1 o'clock. And then we finish the practice writing exercises Sunday morning, the next day at the writing range from 7:30 to 2 p.m. Times are approximate. We may get done a little bit early. It depends on a lot of variables. Now, the weekday class, we start the practice writing exercises Thursday morning at the writing range from 7:30 to about 1 o'clock. And we finish the practice writing exercises on Friday, the next day, morning at the writing range from 7:30 to 2 p.m. Again, the times are approximate. PM class, again, the classroom session starts Tuesday night from 6 o'clock to approximately 10 o'clock. And the PM class starts the practice writing exercises Saturday afternoon at the writing range from 12:30 in the afternoon to 7 o'clock p.m. And they finish the practice writing exercises Sunday afternoon, the next day, at the writing range from, again, 12:30 to approximately 7 o'clock p.m. And again, the times are approximate. Now, if you're taking the BRC2, the class schedule is, again, the classroom session, again, will be Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to approximately 10 p.m. And you start the practice writing exercises either Saturday or Sunday afternoon at the writing range from 12:30 in the afternoon to approximately 6 o'clock. So double check your confirmation documents to see which day the writing session is on that you signed up for. And again, times are approximate. Course requirements. You must have completed the online basic eCourse or completed by the first day of the writing session. You can't write the exercises without it. We need to submit your completion certificate ID card or ID number to the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. And you must attend Tuesday night's classroom session in its full entirety. In fact, we'll be doing it with Adobe Connect. We don't use Zoom. We prefer Adobe Connect. And Adobe Connect actually records or logs in what time you log in and what time you log out. So it does keep a great attendance record for us. And you must write every practice writing exercise. There's no exceptions with that. And if you miss or if you're late for a practice writing exercise, this is important. You're out of the class and you'll have to pay for and attend another class. Course requirements to get the New Jersey Motor Vehicle MOST or Motorcycle Operator's Skill Test waiver. You need to pass the following 4 tests. All the basic eCourse quizzes. And if you do that, you get a completion certificate with an ID number. There's a bicycle test if you're taking the BRC1. There's a knowledge test if you're taking the BRC1, and if you're taking the BRC2 to get the New Jersey Motorcycle License Waiver, the insurance discount, and or the 2-point reduction. And there's a skill test if you're taking the BRC1, and if you're taking the BRC2 for the license waiver. So, for those of you who are taking the BRC1, can you ride a bicycle? Well, we'll see how well you ride one when you get to the riding range, because everyone's going to ride the bicycle for 10 yards before we begin the riding exercises. And if you can't ride the bicycle, we can't let you get on a motorcycle. And we have our Pee Wee Herman special bicycle, and we're actually serious about this one. And if you actually can't ride the bicycle, it's an indication you're not going to be able to ride the motorcycle, so we refund you $200. You can go out and buy your own bicycle and practice for a while and then come back and retake the course with us. Knowledge test, which is done at the end of Tuesday night's classroom session. 25 multiple choice questions on the material in the basic eCourse, this eCourse supplement, and the live online classroom session on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Passing score is 80 or above. And we have some retest options. If you don't pass the first time around, you can take a free retest within 30 days. Let's talk about the skill tests or the road test. You have to demonstrate your ability to perform 7 riding skills. Passing score is 15 or lower. We offer 2 retest options. We have a 90% passing rate at our school. It's one of the highest in the country, probably the highest in the country. People fail the skill test for 1 or 2 reasons. Test anxiety, people just tighten up. Whenever there's a test, there's not much we can do about that, but we try to make the course as much fun and relaxing as possible. But again, test anxiety just kicks in with some people. And some people just need more practice time to develop the needed skills. So we have retest option 1. We allow 1 free retest within 30 days. And retest option 2, if you need or want more practice time, You can take what we call the AP BRC practice course, which is $149, and we offer, and get approximately 4 additional hours of writing practice and retest after the next exercise in that course. So that's another way you can actually do a retest. So we have 2 options available for you. Now, some people need more than 10 hours of practice riding to ride a motorcycle up to New Jersey State's minimum standards. It's not the end of the world if you don't pass the skill test on the first attempt. You just need more practice. As I said before in the previous slide, there are retest options. There's 2 of them. And if you make it to the skill test, which is done after all of the riding exercises have been completed, you learned how to ride a motorcycle. And if you have the needed skills, you'll pass the skill test. It's kind of that simple. The practice riding exercises, the way they work, one instructor will read and explain the exercise. The other instructor will demonstrate how the exercise should be done. And students get on their training motorcycle and ride the exercise. Some exercises are ridden as a group. Some are ridden one at a time. And as you ride the exercise, the instructors will coach you verbally or by using hand signals. We're not going to get on the back of the motorcycle. We're not that stupid. We'll be out there coaching you and give you some hand signals or verbal signals, or stopping and actually coaching you. Now, each of the 14 exercises in the course has an objective to meet or a skill to initially develop. And you can further develop the needed skills on your own motorcycle by taking one of our advanced courses. Now, each exercise has a time limit to meet the objective. And if we meet the objective sooner, well, we're going to move on to the next exercise. If you do not meet the objective within a time frame, well, we'll work with you for a few more minutes. But if you still do not meet the objective, we will counsel you out of the class, refund you some money, and recommend that you take a private remedial lesson to help you develop the initial skill at your own pace. And then you can register for another basic rider course at a reduced rate. Now, we take a break after every 2 or 3 riding exercises, and we ride rain or shine. The only exceptions would be heavy downpours, lightning, hail, or snow. Now, the BRC1 is an intense accelerated learning course. It helps to train a lot of people in one class all at once. 12 is the maximum people we can put in the class. The pace is quick because of the amount of material to cover and the time frame to cover all the material. And the course works for most people. Now, some people are not able to keep up with the pace. And if you can't, as I said before, we will counsel you out of the class, and you can take a private remedial lesson on another day to help you develop the initial skills needed to continue with the course. Then you can register for another basic rider course at a reduced rate. We talked about that before. Now, some people need one-on-one private practice to develop the basic initial skills. And we know that people progress at different paces. Some of you will have riding experience and some won't. And everyone isn't going to complete the course with the same skill level. We know that. But everyone who successfully completes the course will have achieved the minimum skill level. Now, we do our best to work with you if you're struggling. However, time is a factor. You may be counseled out of the class for any of the following reasons. Basically, this first one in green here is pretty much the big one. Basically, if you do not meet the objective in early exercise, which is usually exercise 2, and that's learning how to take off. And maybe you might have trouble with the clutch and the throttle. We do offer a course which you can take before the BRC1 called an IME. You can actually go to our website and look about that, which gives you some practice with the clutch and the throttle if you're not familiar with a clutch and a throttle or have never driven a vehicle with a clutch or a throttle. Another reason why you may be counseled out of the course, maybe your speed's too slow to keep up with the rest of the class. Maybe you're not able to control the motorcycle or keep losing control of it. Maybe if you drop the motorcycle 3 times, it's not a good sign. You may be too nervous, anxious, overwhelmed, or fatigued. We don't want that to happen because that could be an accident waiting to happen. Or maybe you get injured and you're not okay to continue. Now, we may try to prevent this by counseling out if we see that may happen, and we want to keep you and the other students safe. So we'll see, maybe we may counsel you out because you're not developing the needed basic skills, and we're not allowed to let you practice on your own on the side. You must be supervised by an instructor while doing the exercise. So we just can't let you off on your own in the corner to practice. You got to be practicing with us, and you have to meet these objectives within the time frame. Now, during or after the first day of the riding exercise, you may decide that riding a motorcycle is not for you, and that's okay. Riding a motorcycle is not for everyone. It looks easy, but a lot is involved. It's like playing the drums. A lot of things going on at once. Now, if you decide during or after the first day of the riding exercise that riding a motorcycle is not for you, will refund $100 of your course payment. And we're the only school actually in the country that offers refunds. The practice riding range, it's the Montclair State University parking lot 60 at 35 Clove Road in Little Falls. It's off of Route 46 East. If you use a GPS to get there, use Google Maps because we have the location marked on Google Maps. There's special lines painted on the ground. You're not going to be riding in the street. You're not going to be going faster than 20 miles per hour. You're not going to get beyond third gear, and you're not going to get anywhere near Route 46 if we can help it. But you'll be riding in a controlled and supervised environment, basically in a parking lot. And we do have a porta-john outside behind the storage container that we have there. So what did you notice about them? These are only motorcycles. Well, it's basically a bicycle with an engine. So how are you going to ride a motorcycle? Same way you ride a bicycle, which is one of the reasons why we want to see if you can ride one. We get this question a lot, so we're going to address it here. What motorcycle should I buy? Depends. First of all, price. What can you afford? Do you want a new one or a used one? Fit. How about the height and weight? It should fit your height, and it should not be too heavy for you. So your first one, your feet should be flat on the ground to aid in balancing, and one that you can handle to prevent falling, or maybe if you have to pick it up if it falls. So you don't want it to be too heavy. Buy one based on the type of riding that you're going to do. You want a sport bike, a cruiser, maybe you're going to do some touring. There's something called a do-purpose motorcycle, which means you can ride it on the street and in dirt. Or maybe you just want some fun and convenience around town, something to get you around. The cc's or cubic centimeters is really irrelevant, but you want to go by the above. Go by the type of riding that you're going to do, the fit and the price. And the faster you can go, the greater your chances of getting into trouble. And a motorcycle goes only as fast as your right wrist turns. Now let's review some of the motorcycle controls and the basic physical riding skills covered in the basic eCourse, which hopefully you've already taken. So let's review the motorcycle controls. So number one, what is the throttle used for? I'm going to give you a little bit of time to mentally answer these questions, and then I'll provide you with the answer. And the throttle is the right hand grip, and it's used to speed up or slow down the motorcycle, just like the gas pedal in a car. Which way do you turn the throttle to speed up? Toward you. We call this rolling on the throttle. Which way do you turn the throttle to slow down? Away from you. We call it rolling off the throttle. How many fingers do you have on the throttle when you ride? Well, we strongly recommend all 5 fingers with your wrist slightly down for good throttle control. It's pretty hard or difficult to control the throttle when you don't have all 5 fingers on the throttle. Now, how do you check the throttle? Make sure it's working properly. Well, you want to roll on the throttle with the engine off and release it, and it should snap back. If it doesn't snap back, check it out, get it checked, get it fixed, because you really don't want to ride around with a stuck throttle. That's like riding around in a car with the gas pedal stuck. Not good. Okay, what does the clutch do? It's the same as a clutch with a manual transmission vehicle. Those of you who may be familiar with a clutch because you've driven one before. Well, the clutch is the lever by the left hand grip. It engages and disengages power to the rear wheel. Well, what does that mean for those of you who aren't familiar with a clutch? Well, when the motorcycle is in gear with the clutch fully in, there is no power to the rear wheel. The motorcycle has no power and will not go anywhere. Now, as you ease the clutch lever out, more power is transferred to the rear wheel, and the rear wheel will start to roll and the motorcycle will start to move. Now, when the clutch lever is fully out, the rear wheel has full power, and the motorcycle will go as fast as you roll on the throttle with your right wrist. So what's the clutch used for? Well, we use it for taking off, for shifting. We need it for stopping. We use it for slow speed maneuvers. And if you lose control of the motorcycle, just pull in the clutch and you're taking away the power. In case the motorcycle runs away on you like a wild bucking bronco, pull in the clutch and you're taking away the power. Now, what do we use the gear shift lever for? And again, the same as a manual transmission vehicle. Well, the gear shift lever is by the left foot peg, and it's used to shift to a higher gear or a lower gear. So what gear do we start off in? First gear. What gear do we come to a stop in? First gear. Now when you come to a stop, you might be in maybe third or fourth gear while you're running, but you want to make sure you come to a stop in first gear. Get it in first gear when you come to a stop. Because if you come to a stop in second gear and try to take off in second gear, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. You may wind up stalled. So again, take off in first gear, make sure you come to a stop in first gear. So what direction do we move the gear shift lever when we want to go to a higher gear? For example, maybe you want to go from first gear to second gear. Well, you're going to roll your toes under the lever, quickly lift or snap it up all the way once, and quickly release it. And it's shown on the basic eCourse video. There's a sample there. Now, which direction do we move the gear shift lever when we want to go to a lower gear? Maybe example, you want to go from fourth to third gear. Well, you roll your toes over the lever and quickly press it down once, and again, that's shown on the basic eCourse video. So to help you remember it, you lift up to go to a higher gear, and you press down to go to a lower gear. So up, higher, down, lower. Good way to remember it. And that's the way the motorcycle manufacturers designed it. Let's talk about the gear shift lever pattern. Over here on the left, you can actually see the gear shift pattern. We got one on the bottom. Next up, we got neutral. And next up, we got second, third, fourth, and fifth. It's the way the gear shift lever works. There's a picture of it here. This is what the gear shift lever looks like. And this would be actually the left foot peg. So the gear shift lever, again, is going to be on the left side of the motorcycle. And every time you lift this lever up, you go up one gear. Every time you press the lever down, you go down one gear. Always start off in first gear, as we mentioned before. And once you start off in first gear, and as you gain more speed, shift to second gear. And as you gain more speed in second gear, then shift to third gear. And as you gain more speed in third gear, shift to fourth gear. And as you gain more speed in fourth gear, shift to fifth gear. Fifth gear, you're probably doing about maybe 50, 60 miles an hour. You can't go any higher unless you have sixth gear, and some motorcycles do have 6 gears. So the gear shift lever, we can only shift one gear at a time. Let me give you an example. You cannot shift from first to fourth, and you cannot go from 2 to fifth. You can only shift up one gear at a time. So every time you lift that lever up, you go up one gear. And when you downshift, you can't downshift from fifth gear to second. You can only go downshift one gear at a time. Okay? So, for example, how do we go from second gear to fifth? Well, if you're in second gear, we need to lift that lever up how many times? 3 times. You got to lift it up to go to third, then you got to lift it up to go to fourth, and then you got to lift it up again and go to fifth gear. Now, if you're in fifth gear, how do you downshift it to third? Well, if you're in fifth gear, you got to press the lever down twice. You got to first downshift from fifth to fourth, and then from fourth to third. Okay? Now, where's neutral? It's a tricky question. Now, neutral is between first and second gear. So, it's a slight lift up from first gear or a slight press down from second gear. So, neutral can be found from either first or second gear. Now, when you shift the lever all the way up from first gear, you bypass neutral and it automatically goes to second gear. So now, how would you find neutral from fifth gear? What would you do? I'll give you a few seconds to think about this one. Well, here's an easy way. Keep downshifting until you get to the basement, which is first gear, then lift up slightly. That's the easiest way to do it. And how do you know when you're in first gear? Well, the gear shift lever is not going to go down anymore. If it doesn't go down anymore, you're in first gear. You're in the basement, so to speak. Now, how should you position your foot on the foot peg? Well, the heel space of your shoe should be resting on the foot peg like this. See, here's the heel space here. That should be resting on the foot peg there. So now we have a picture here of the rear brake, which is by the right foot peg. And when you want to apply the rear brake, you're going to roll your toes over and up and press down to apply. It's the same thing on the other side with the gear shift lever. Same concept. How should you apply the front brake lever and the rear brake pedal? A lot of debate about this, but you want to do them simultaneously and progressively. 95% of the time, you want to use both brakes to slow down and stop. Apply both brakes at the same time 95% of the time. And we'll talk about instances where you may not do that. Now, how many fingers should you use when applying the front brake lever to stop? Again, this is open to a lot of debate, but we strongly recommend 4. And the front brake lever is the lever by the throttle, the right hand grip. And we'll explain why you should be using 4 fingers on the front brake lever when we actually do the riding exercises in the class. Now, if you squeeze that front brake lever fast and hard, you're going to crash. Because you're going to lock that front wheel, which means you're going to stop it from rolling. And if you stop it from rolling, boom, you're going down. So squeeze the front brake lever like you're squeezing a plastic mustard bottle to spice your food. Nice and easy. The rear brake. When you're applying the rear brake pedal on our training motorcycles, use only the balls of your feet, pretty much like what you do on the brake pedal of a car. Hopefully you don't use your heel on your brake pedal of your car. Because if you use more of your foot on the training motorcycles on the rear brake pedal, may cause a skid because it's too much. So again, when you're applying the rear brake pedal on our training motorcycles, use only the balls of your feet. Now, what does the fuel supply valve do if the motorcycle has one? Usually a motorcycle with a carburetor will have a fuel supply valve. Well, it's located on the left side by the carburetor, and it supplies fuel to the engine. It's real simple. Now, what are the different positions on it? We have a little bit of a picture over here. Well, you can have basically 4 positions. You'll have on, off, reserve, and prime. Let's talk about each one. So how do you use the fuel supply valve if your motorcycle has one? Well, you want to turn it on before starting the motorcycle to allow fuel to flow into the carburetor. And then turn it to the off position after turning motorcycle off, unless you have what's called a vacuum fuel supply valve. So, why turn it off? Well, let's explain both. If you don't have a fuel supply valve, the motorcycle fuel supply valve will have an on and an off position. So when you shut that motorcycle off, you want to turn the valve to the off position. Why? Well, if you leave it in the on position and shut the motorcycle off, gas will continue to flow into the carburetor, and it may flood your engine and foul up your plugs. And usually if that happens, the motorcycle is hard to start or it won't start. So again, turn the valve to the off position. Some motorcycles have what's called a vacuum fuel supply valve, which means there's no off position. Once you shut the motorcycle off, the flow of fuel stops. Okay, and basically you'll know if you have a vacuum fuel supply valve if you don't have an off position. Now, what is RES reserved used for? Good question. Well, it's used if you start to run out of gas. Now, you can start the motorcycle with the fuel supply valve in the off position. There is usually some fuel in the carburetor. However, it will stall after a few minutes. So if you take off and all of a sudden the bike starts sputting on you, maybe the fuel supply valve is in the off position. So you need to turn it in the on position to continue. All right. Now, if your motorcycle has a vacuum fuel supply valve, as we said before, it doesn't have an off position. Usually we'll have a prime position. So you want to check with your mom on how to use prime. We use a lot of acronyms in the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course. Mom, any idea what you think it might stand for? Acronym initials? Well, it's Motorcycle Owner's Manual. Okay. How do you know when the motorcycle is starting to run out of gas? Well, it's going to start to sputter while you're riding. What do you do if that happens? Well, You want to reach down while riding without looking at that fuel supply valve. You want to keep your eyes on the road and turn it to the reserve position. So you want to know where that reserve position is. And you'll have access to more gas, but not much more. Okay. Here's a diagram of the fuel tank. It's only one gas tank, but it's got two valves. And as you can see, the longer valve is when the gas line goes below the bigger valve, you can't access the rest of the gas. So you need to turn the fuel supply valve to the reserve position in order to access what's left in the tank there. How much do you have, quote unquote, in reserve? You're going to have to check with your motorcycle. You have to check with Mom on that one, okay? Mom knows best there. Now, if you're on reserve, what should you be looking for? Yeah, gas station. Now, what do you do if you're fueling up? Well, turn it back to the on position. Why? Well, if you leave the fuel valve in the off position and then you go out and start riding, now once the motorcycle starts sputtering, you used up that reserve, so you're out of gas. And what's going to happen? Well, then you're going to have to either call for a tow truck to bring you some gasoline, or you're going to have to walk that motorcycle to a gas station. You know, been there, done that, and it's pretty embarrassing. Especially if you have a heavy motorcycle. All right. Now, fuel-injected motorcycles usually don't have a fuel supply valve. Now, when do you use the choke if your motorcycle has one? And again, a choke will be with a motorcycle that has a carburetor. Basically, you're going to use the choke when the engine is cold. Now, basically that means it hasn't been running for a while, and the engine won't start with it off. It has nothing to do with the temperature outside. For example, it could be 90 degrees outside, and you ride your motorcycle on a Saturday, and then you put it in the garage Saturday night, and then you go out on Sunday afternoon and you want to ride it again. Even though the temperature is 90 degrees, the engine is cold because it hasn't been running for a while. So you're going to need to use the choke. Okay. Well, what does the choke do? Well, a little technical here, motorcycle mechanics or mechanics. Basically, it cuts the airflow to the carburetor, allowing more fuel to ignite the engine quickly. Basically, if you're choking somebody, you know, in the neck, you're cutting off their air supply. What happens after you start the motorcycle with the choke on? Well, what's going to happen is that engine's going to start to rev higher because it's getting more fuel. Okay, now what do you do when that happens? Well, once that engine starts to rev higher, gradually start to cut back on the choke, gradually until the engine can idle with the choke off. So you're going to have to play with that engine choke to eventually, you know, it holds an idle. Basically, and when it can hold the idle with your choke off, you know, you're ready to go. Now, where are you going to find the choke if the motorcycle has one? Well, it can be in a lot of places. It can be a lever by the left hand grip. It can be a knob on the handlebars. It can be a lever by the carburetor. And again, fuel-injected motorcycles usually don't have a choke. Now, what does the tachometer show you if your motorcycle has one? Engine revolutions per minute. Okay, well, they call it for short RPMs, revolutions per minute. Now, what are some of the positions for the ignition switch? It's basically where the key goes. Well, you got on, off, park, and lock. Okay, so when you want to start the motorcycle, you turn the key to the on position. That doesn't start it like a car. There's some other things you got to do, and we'll talk about that in a few moments. And when you shut the bike off, you're going to turn the key to the off position, because if you leave the key in the on position, you're going to wind up killing the battery. Let's talk about park. If you put the key in the park position, what does it do? Well, if you put the key in the park position, your tail light will light up. Maybe if you break down at night, you can put the motorcycle on the side of the street or side of the road, put the key in the park position, and that tail light will stay on. It's not going to blink like the parking flashing lights of a car. They don't blink. It just stays on. But what's the downside of putting the motorcycle in the park position? You're going to kill that battery. Now, when you put the key in the park position, you actually can take the key out of the ignition. Okay? Let's talk about lock. When you put the key in the lock position, when you turn the handlebars all the way to the left, we call that full lock left, you can actually lock the handlebars in that position. Sort of like, you do on a steering wheel in a car, you lock it in that position. Is that going to prevent someone from stealing your motorcycle? Hell no. If people want your motorcycle, they can pretty much steal it in 5 minutes or less. There's pros out there, and they're real good at that. And if you go on YouTube, you can see how fast they actually steal it. It's phenomenal. So if they want that bike, they got it no matter what you do. Where are you going to find the ignition switch? Well, it could be by the handlebars, it could be on the side of the motorcycle, and some of the new ones don't have them. You basically use a key fob, like in the cars, new cars. Where will you find the turn signals on a motorcycle? Well, usually you'll find them by the left-hand grip, or on some motorcycles, the left signal is on the left-hand grip and the right signal is on the right-hand grip. Now, how often should you use your turn signals? Any idea? Well, the law states every time before you make a turn, before you change lanes, merge into a lane, pull out, pull over in a highway, exit a highway, and pull in and out of a driveway. By law, this is when you're supposed to use your turn signals, and you could get a ticket for not using them in these instances. Now, how many feet before a turn are you required by New Jersey law to signal? 100 feet. Not the last second, not while turning or after turning. 100 feet before. Now, do the turn signals on a motorcycle cancel automatically after making a turn or lane change? Some do and some don't. Again, check with your mom. Now, what does a convex mirror do? Again, remember that wording. What's that wording on the right side view car mirror there? Remember? A little tricky. Well, it gives you a wider view to help reduce the blind spot area. It doesn't eliminate. What a convex mirror does, it distorts the distance. Now, objects are closer than they actually appear. So you can look at something in your side view mirror, which may be a convex mirror, and it looks far away, but actually it may be right on your rear bumper. Now, if you have any questions about any of the controls, indicators, or equipment, just write them down, and we'll discuss them on Tuesday night during the live online classroom session. Always check with Mom. Mom Knows Best. It was a TV show back in the 60s, I'm dating myself, called Father Knows Best. When it comes to motorcycles, Mom knows best. All right, we'll move on. Words of the wise. Would you agree or disagree with this? Yeah, this is one factor that can cause a crash. Motorcycle control and experience. Maybe you got a new motorcycle and you're inexperienced with it. Okay, so don't go out in traffic unless you're pretty good at knowing where the controls are and pretty good at working, especially shifting, because you don't want to be stalling all the time while you're out there or losing control of the motorcycle. Be at an accident waiting to happen. All right, let's talk about the basic physical riding skills. Let's review them. These were in the eCourse. We're going to do a quick review here. Not a quick review, but a detailed review. Starting the motorcycle. What is the acronym that was mentioned in the eCourse to help us remember how to start it? Well, the acronym is FINE CC. So let's review what each letter stands for and what it means. The F, well, you turn the fuel supply valve to the on position if there is one, or if it needs to be turned on. You may not have it. Most of our training motorcycles do not have a fuel supply valve, so you can skip the F in the formula. Next letter is I. It stands for ignition. You want to turn the ignition, turn the key to the on position, which is one click to the right. Now, this will not start the motorcycle. There's other things we got to do. N stands for neutral. You want to put the motorcycle neutral. This is a safety thing. Again, we're a safety course. And what are the two ways to test for neutral? Any idea? If you're in neutral, green light will go on. Green neutral light will be on. Second way to test for neutral is you can roll the motorcycle forward and backward with the clutch out. And if the motorcycle is in neutral with the clutch out, it will roll back and forth. If the motorcycle is in gear with the clutch out, it will not roll. But if the motorcycle is in gear and you have the clutch in, it will roll back and forth. So you want to roll the motorcycle forward and back with the clutch out to test for neutral. The E stands for engine cutoff switch. Turn that engine cutoff switch, use that red switch by the throttle, to the on or run position. For C, open the choke if the engine is cold or hasn't been running for a while, if there is one. And the last C, squeeze the clutch lever all the way in. Now, some motorcycles won't start unless the clutch is in. Any idea what you do next? Some people get lost on this one. Push the start button, which is by the throttle. Now, older motorcycles had a Kickstarter lever to push down on with your right foot. That was fun. It's kind of a good workout. And once that motorcycle is started, ease the clutch lever out slowly once that motorcycle is started, in case the motorcycle is not in neutral. Sometimes you're going to get a false neutral. Okay, that idiot light, green idiot light may be on. It may say that it's neutral, but it may not be in neutral. Sometimes it's what we call a false neutral. Maybe the gears get stuck somewhere between first and second, or second and third. Okay? I'm sorry. The gears get stuck between first and second. First and second. Okay? Because neutral is between first and second. So it might be, get stuck in first and second. All right. Now, we'll go through this entire routine of Find C again when we do exercise 1 on the first writing day. So you want to remember this acronym. It's one that's important. It's one that we're using both days because you're going to be using it to start the motorcycle. The choke, again, used to start a cold engine when the motorcycles have a carburetor. Now, again, if you're going to start the motorcycle with the choke, the RPMs are going to start to rise. And when that happens, we want to gradually cut back on the choke, as we mentioned before, and then close that choke completely before riding. So that motorcycle should idle well without the choke on. Good rule of thumb is if the motorcycle doesn't start, make sure the choke is on. Kind of a good rule of thumb. Now, what procedure do we want you to follow when you're shutting the motorcycle off? Again, this is in the eCourse. Well, first thing we want you to do is turn that red engine cutoff switch to the off position with your right thumb to shut that engine off quickly. Okay? Because a motorcycle that is off is not going to hurt anybody, especially the instructors. So we want you to shut that motorcycle off quickly. So when you come into what we call the staging area or the stopping area for the exercise, as soon as you come into that area, shut that motorcycle off immediately by turning that engine cutoff switch off. Second thing you want to do is turn the key off with your right hand. Okay, we don't want to leave it in the on position and kill the battery. We don't want that. The third thing we do, the last thing we do, is turn the fuel supply valve to the off position if needed with your left hand, if the motorcycle has it. Okay. So we kind of use thumb key valve as an acronym or phrase to remember how to shut the motorcycle off. How about this one? What gear do you want to shut that motorcycle off in? Tip, you want first gear. Okay, does the motorcycle have a parking brake? It sure does. It's first gear. So shut that motorcycle off in first gear. If you're parked on a hill and it's in neutral and somebody pushes that motorcycle, well, it's going to be rolling down the hill. Or maybe you have it parked in your garage and the garage has a little bit of a tilt or a slant, and maybe when your kid actually hits that motorcycle and pushes it, well, it's going to roll. But if it's in first gear, it's not going to go anywhere. That first gear is just like a parking brake. So always shut that motorcycle off in first gear. So when we want you to come to a stop, in the exercise, again, you want to shut that engine off immediately by using the engine cutter switch, and then you're going to actually stop in first gear. Okay. We don't want you to try to find neutral while that motorcycle is running. That could be an accident waiting to happen. We've seen too many accidents, so shut that motorcycle off immediately in first gear. Friction zone, the point of power. What is the definition of the friction zone? Well, this was in the basic eCourse. Well, the friction zone is the area of clutch lever travel that starts to transmit power to the rear wheel on a manual transmission vehicle. Let's talk a little bit more about the friction zone. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, here we have a picture of the left-hand grip, and position number 1 is the clutch fully in, and position number 5 is the clutch fully out. Now, the friction zone is usually at 0.3 on most motorcycles, somewhere in this particular area. Now, what will happen when you ease the clutch lever out to the friction zone? Well, the motorcycle will start to move forward slightly because you're giving some power to the rear wheel. Now, what will happen when you ease just the clutch lever all the way out past the friction zone? Well, the motorcycle will stall if you don't give it any gas. The friction zone is mainly used for low speed maneuvers and starting off on an incline. So let's talk about taking off. First, you want to squeeze the clutch lever all the way in and shift to first gear. Now, how do you do that? Well, the motorcycle is started, and you're in what gear? You're in neutral. So to get to first gear, squeeze the clutch lever all the way in, and you're going to press down all the way in the gear shift lever, because first gear is below neutral. Okay? You're in the basement, so to speak. And if you can't, when you press down on the gear shift lever and it doesn't go down anymore, you're in the basement. That's first gear, what we call it. Next, you want to keep that clutch lever fully in. So how many feet on the ground when you take off? 1, 2, 3? Well, if you've never ridden before, start off with both feet on the ground. That'll give you balance and stability, and also minimize stalling. Now, if you've been riding for a while and if you can take off with 1 foot on the ground, we're okay with that. However, if you're a novice, if you've never ridden a motorcycle before, start off with both feet on the ground. Because if you try to take off with 1 foot on the ground, the bike may veer off in one direction and you might lose control of the motorcycle, or you may be stalling all over the place. So again, start off with both feet on the ground. Keep your head and eyes up. Your eyes tell your brain where to go. If you're looking down on the ground, what are you telling your brain? Ground, ground, ground. Well, we don't want that. So again, look where you want to go. And follow these 3 easy steps to take off. Number 1, with the motorcycle on level ground, roll on throttle 1/4 turn and hold it there. Number 2, then slowly ease the clutch lever all the way out. Again, you want to do this slowly. And 3, once the clutch lever is all the way out, put your feet on the foot pegs and gradually roll on the throttle to increase your speed. Now the rear wheel has full power and will go as fast as you turn your right wrist. Let's take a look at the short video on taking off. The bike is started, we're in neutral, shift to first gear, pull the clutch all the way in, downshift to the bottom, all the way down. Now, step 1, you're going to ease the throttle, you're going to roll on the throttle, 1/4 of a turn and hold it there. Now slowly ease out the clutch all the way out. Once the clutch is fully out, put your feet on the pegs and increase the throttle to increase your speed. All right, what are the 4 basic steps for making a normal turn? A normal turn we define as one where you're going 10 miles per hour or more. Well, in the eCourse, the 4 steps are slow look, lean, press, and roll. We like to use slow look, lean instead of press and roll because we came up with an acronym, SLUR. So we use the acronym SLUR, so you want to slur your turns. So let's go through each step of SLUR, the SLUR process. So when do you want to slow down? When do you want to start to slow down? What number? We got 5 numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What number do you want to start to slow down in? Well, you want to start slowing down at 0.5. You want to slow down well before the entrance to the turn, 0.5 or sooner. Okay. Now, how can we slow down a motorcycle? There's only three ways. We can apply both brakes. We can roll off the throttle. It's like taking your foot off of the gas pedal. Or you can downshift to the next lower gear, also known as engine braking. Those are the only three ways you can slow down a motorcycle. So you want to get your slowing down done, completely finished, before you get to point 1, which is the entrance to the turn, whether it be by using the brakes, downshifting, or rolling off the throttle. Where do you look? The second part is slur. What number? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Well, you want to look where you want to end up. Look where you want to end up. Look where you want to end up. You also want to scan the road up and down, looking for any hazards. A lot of people have trouble turning. It's because of where they're looking. If you're looking at point 1 when you make the turn, you're going to run wide. If you're looking at point 2 while you're going to make the turn, you're going to run wide also. But if you're looking at point 5 or past point 5, you're going to, get there. So look where you want to end up. Okay. Next step, lean press. The same way you make a turn on a bicycle. Again, that's why we want to make sure you know how to ride a bicycle. No big deal here. And what's the last step? Roll. What does roll mean? Rock and roll? Bagel or roll? All right, you want to roll in the throttle to stabilize the suspension. What does that mean? Well, when we slow down any vehicle, car, truck, motorcycle, school bus, you name it, where does the weight go? Well, the weight goes to the forward. So now you got more weight on the front tires than the rear tires, more weight on the front shocks than the rear shocks. To maximize traction on any vehicle, you want to equal the weight on the front and rear of any vehicle when you're going through a turn, corner, or curve, especially on a motorcycle, because a motorcycle only has 2 wheels, so it's crucial here, okay? So what will equalize the weight? Well, we've got fire engines. I don't know if you can hear that. Hopefully not. So what's going to equalize the weight? Well, a slight roll on the throttle. Now, in a car, what happens when you step on the gas pedal? Weight goes to the back, right? So your weight moves backward. Now, what if we roll on the throttle too much? Then we got too much weight going to the rear. Okay? So we want to roll on the throttle just enough to equalize the weight on the front and rear of the motorcycle. And when do we want to roll on the throttle? Well, we want to roll on the throttle slightly just before entering the turn or curve. So we want to roll on the throttle before leaning the motorcycle. Why? Well, again, as we said before, you want to equalize the weight on the front and rear tires for maximum traction. You want to level the motorcycle before entering the turn or the curve. As I said before, traction is crucial on a motorcycle. Now, here's the position after slowing down. The weight goes forward by either applying the brakes, engine braking, or rolling off the throttle. Now, we don't want to go through the turn in that position because we don't have good traction. Obviously, there's more weight on the front tire here than on the rear tire. So what you want to do is you want to level it off. So this is the ideal position before you enter turn. Okay, you want to give a little bit of throttle, roll on the throttle because you want to level that weight by rolling on that throttle slightly. Okay, the motorcycle should be this way before you enter the turn. Again, a lot of untrained motorcyclists turn poorly. All right. Now, a good overall strategy to use when you're turning is what we call search, sit up, and smooth. Again, this was mentioned in the eCourse. What does it mean? Well, again, the strategy is you want to search for hazards, warning signs. Usually warning signs tell you any hazards that's coming up, which way the curve goes, or maybe it also will tell you what speed to slow down to navigate the turn safely. What's beyond the curve you want to know, maybe oncoming traffic, the road and surface conditions. So that's what you want to be searching for. Set it up. Make sure you got a good entry speed and a lane position, and we're going to talk more about that in the live online classroom session. And again, you want to be smooth. You want that steady throttle throughout the entire turn, because smooth is cool. And you want to be cool on a motorcycle. That's why everybody wants to ride one. You want to look cool. All right. There's two types of turns. We have a normal turn, which we define as going 10 miles per hour or more. And then we have a tight turn, and we define that as going less than 10 miles per hour. So again, normal turn, you're going 10 miles per hour or more. And the way you go through a normal turn, you should press and lean with the clutch fully out, just like on a bicycle, with no clutch though. Tight turn, again, we're going lower, slower than 10 miles per hour. So this would be a slow speed turn, a slow speed weave maybe, a U-turn, or maybe when you're going under 10 miles per hour, basically a working pace. This is where you want to use the counterweight. What does that mean? Well, this is where you're going to turn the handlebars. You're going to use the clutch and throttle to control your speed and prevent stalling. So basically, you're going to be riding in the friction zone when you're doing a slow speed tight turn or tight maneuver. Again, same things you do when riding a bicycle, except there's no clutch use. You don't have to worry about stalling a bicycle, hopefully. Let's see. Yes or no? No. Why? Well, you take power away from the rear wheel, and you don't want to do that when you're making a normal turn, when you're leaning. Okay, now what needs to happen to balance that motorcycle to level it out? Once you've slowed down, the weight has gone forward, right? So if we're slowing down before the engine to turn, the weight has gone forward. So what do we need to do to equalize the weight? We want to roll in the throttle slightly. So if you're pulling in a clutch, it defeats the purpose, because you can pull in the clutch, you can rev that throttle up to 100 RPMs. It's not going to do anything. So that's why you don't want to pull in the clutch on a normal turn here. Okay, you want to power that you want that rear wheel to power that motorcycle through the turn, because you need traction through the turn. Again, equal weight on both tires. Okay. Now, hopefully, do you put your car in neutral when you're making a turn? Hopefully not. Okay. So the clutch is never used while making a normal turn, unless you're engine braking to slow down, which is done well before the entrance of the turn. Okay. A lot of people think that pulling a clutch will slow you down. It won't. It won't. If you don't believe me, try this experiment. If you have your own motorcycle, go down a hill in second gear, pull in the clutch, let me know if it slows you down. If it does, I'll pay you $1 million. Cash. So slow down enough well before the turn with the brakes or by engine braking or rolling off the throttle, so you don't need to slow down while you're entering the turn. Now, which method of slowing down do you think is the preferred method? Both brakes. Why? Why do you think it's the preferred method? It's pretty obvious once I give you the answer. Well, the brake light lights up to let motors behind you know you're slowing down. Okay? So if you're rolling off the throttle to slow down, does the person behind you know if you're slowing down? No. If you're engine braking when you're slowing down, does the person behind you know you're slowing down? No. But when you use the brakes, if the person behind you is paying attention, they'll see that brake light go on. Now, if you have any questions about taking off or turning, write them down, and we'll discuss them on Tuesday night during the live online classroom session. Let's talk about shifting. Why do we shift gears? Well, you want to match engine speed with road speed. What does that mean? Well, you want to shift to a higher gear, upshift, before the engine starts to whine. That means it revs high. You want to shift to a lower gear, downshift, before the motorcycle starts to lug. So, do you really need to know what gear you're in? No. Let the motorcycle tell you. Okay? When it's starting to rev high, whine out, like if you're in first gear and the motorcycle's going, what's it telling you? Shift me to a higher gear. If you're in fourth gear and the bike is starting to lug on you, what's the bike telling you? Shift me down to a lower gear. All right? So you really don't need to know what gear you're in. Let the bike tell you. Kind of go by the seat of your pants. So how do you know when to shift or upshift to a higher gear? Well, we have a couple of guidelines. You want to upshift before that tachometer reaches the red zone, because if it gets into the red zone, it's probably going to blow the motorcycle and the engine out. Generally, when the tachometer gets close to 3,000 RPMs, usually 3,000 RPMs is the red line on a lot of motorcycles. And the third reason is, when that engine starts to rev high in the gear that you're in. These are pretty much good guidelines when you want to shift. Key point here. Don't shift to a higher gear too soon, or the motorcycle is going to lug and stall on you. So to prevent stalling, get your speed up to approximately maybe 18 to 20 miles per hour before shifting from first gear to second gear, okay? Get your speed up before shifting to a high gear. A lot of times we have beginners who are in first gear, take off, and then immediately shift to second gear and stall. Well, yeah, that's going to happen because you need to get your speed up before you shift to second gear, okay? Start off out in first gear, get your speed up. When you're doing about maybe 18 to 20 miles per hour, then shift to second gear. Get your speed up some more. When you're up to maybe 30, 35, or the engine is starting to rev a little bit on you, shift up to third gear. Okay, continue the process until you reach the highest gear, which may be fifth or sixth gear. Well, how do you know when to shift down? We'll downshift to a lower gear. Here's some guidelines. When the engine starts to lug in the gear that you're in, when it's chugging or lugging, the bike's telling you, drop me to a lower gear. When you're slowing down, engine braking, and when you want to make a quick getaway, there's a little asterisk there. What do we mean by that? Well, let's say you're in fourth gear, and you're on the highway. All of a sudden, you see a car coming at you. What can you do to get away quickly? Now, if you're rolling the throttle, you'll go faster, but it won't get you going quickly away. But if you downshift to the lower gear from fourth to third and then roll on the throttle, you're going to get that extra giddy up, that quick jump. So let me give an example. If you're in a car with a automatic transmission, you're doing 50 miles per hour on the highway. Well, what happens when you put the gas pedal all the way to the floor? It jerks up, it kicks in. Because what happened with the automatic transmission, the car automatically downshifted to first gear when you did that. So the same kind of concept here. Now, you don't want to, if you're in fourth gear or in fifth gear on a motorcycle, you don't want to downshift to first and get away because you probably, lock up the rear wheel and go flying. So to get away quickly on the motorcycle, downshift to the next lowest gear for that quick getaway. All right. So the shifting process, here it is. So the first thing you want to do is roll off the throttle first. Why? Because you want to lower the RPMs. Lower the RPMs first. Roll off your throttle first, then squeeze the clutch lever in fully quickly. Third, shift using the shift lever. If you're going to upshift, lift your foot all the way up quickly, then quickly release it to go to the next higher gear. Or if you're going to downshift, press all the way down quickly to go to the next lower gear. Okay, then once you've shifted up or down, 4 and 5 kind of go together. You want to ease the clutch lever all the way out. Now you can actually ease that clutch lever a little bit quicker. When we're taking off, you want to do it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But here you can go 1, 2, 5. And as you're easing out the clutch lever, you can simultaneously roll on the throttle. All right. So again, roll your throttle, squeeze the clutch in, shift up or down, and then ease and roll simultaneously. Okay. Again, we'll be practicing that shifting during the course. So let's watch this short video. Shifting. Roll off your throttle first. Squeeze the clutch all the way in. Upshift all the way. And then you're going to ease and roll simultaneously. So the clutch is all the way out. Good.
Shifting, same process. Roll off the throttle first. Squeeze the clutch all the way in. Now you're going to downshift, and we're going to ease and roll simultaneously. The clutch all the way out. Good.
All right. Let's talk about engine braking. With engine braking, you're using the power of the engine to slow down the motorcycle. Let me give you an example. You might be doing 65 miles per hour on the Garden State Parkway, and you're coming up to you're in fifth gear, and you're coming up to a toll booth. You're in fifth gear. You may want to slow down by downshifting to fourth, ease out the clutch, and go a few yards. Then downshift to third, ease out the clutch, go a few yards. Downshift to second, ease out the clutch, go a few yards. If you got easy pass, you can kind of like, go right through maybe. Or if you don't have easy pass, you're going to downshift first, come to a stop. Now, in this scenario, did I use the brakes to slow down? No. I used the engine to slow down, basically engine braking. Okay? So again, when you're engine braking, it's kind of the same concept. Roll off the throttle and simultaneously squeeze the clutch lever fully in. Downshift, and then roll on the throttle and simultaneously ease the clutch lever all the way out. Okay, you can use that clutch lever a little bit quicker, 1, 2, 5. Okay. Now, let's talk about it now. Now, those of you who slow down by engine braking, did the bike buck on you when you did your engine braking, slowing down to lower gear? Well, if the engine bucks on you when you're downshifting or engine braking, the bike is telling you that you screwed up the traction. Because everything on a motorcycle should be smooth. Because smooth is cool. When you see the racers downshift, even they're going so fast, everything is smooth. You don't see any jerking at all. So here's some tips. You want to make it that smooth downshift. You need to coordinate the clutch release and the throttle roll on. Because, like I said, smooth is cool. Smooth equals good traction. So after you make that downshift, you want to coordinate both hands simultaneously so it's a smooth downshift so you don't get that herky-jerky. Now, why do you think you want to do this? We talked about it in a previous slide. Sure. Now, if you're real good at engine braking, you're real smooth at it, you're real cool at it, does the person behind you in the car know you're slowing down? No. So what you want to do is, if you're going to engine brake, you can tap your brake light, which you can do that. If you play with your front brake lever, that'll turn on the rear brake light. Well, if you press down slightly on the rear brake pedal, that will also light up the brake light. So either one will do that. So it's a good defensive driving technique. Again, tapping that brake light when you're actually slowing down. Okay. Now again, if you have any questions about shifting, whether it's upshifting, downshifting, or engine braking, write them down, and we'll discuss them on Tuesday night during the live online classroom session. Let's talk about stopping, something that we eventually need to do. What gear do you want to be in when you come to a stop? Well, we kind of mentioned it early on. First gear. So, here's a scenario. You're in fifth gear, coming up to a red light, and you're using the brakes to slow down, to come to a stop. So how do you come to stop while you're using the brakes? Think about it. What would you do? You're in fifth gear, you're coming up to a red traffic light. Now, we want to come to a stop in first gear, so tell me how you're going to do it. Well, think about how to do it. Okay. When you're downshifting to come to a stop while you're using the brakes, do not ease the clutch lever out after each downshift. Why? Well, if you're using the brakes to slow down, where's your weight going? Forward. Okay. So if you release the clutch after a downshift, where's the weight go? Forward. So if you're applying the brakes and engine braking, it's too much traction going on the front wheel. So do one or the other. Do not do both at the same time, because you don't want to put too much traction on that front tire. Okay, so you don't want to add engine braking when you're applying the brakes. It's too much traction moving forward. So we said before, one or the other. So keep downshifting the first gear with the clutch fully in while using the brakes to come to a stop. Okay, so again, don't use the brakes and engine brake at the same time. Use one or the other, not both at the same time. It could get ugly. So what you're doing is you're applying both brakes with your right hand. Actually, you're applying the front brake with your right hand, and you're also at the same time applying the rear brake pedal. So you apply both brakes simultaneously as you come to a stop. You pull in the clutch, and if you're in fifth gear, keep on downshifting to first, keeping that clutch in. So you're downshifting 4, 3, 2, 1 with that clutch in. You're not releasing that clutch at all. You're just keeping that clutch in all the way, downshifting to first. Okay. How do you know when you're in first gear? It won't go down anymore. All right. So to help you remember the process for beginners, we use a three-step process. We call it BCD, or Be Cool Dude. We came up with this acronym. The B, apply both brakes simultaneously. Then a split second later, C, squeeze the clutch lever in fully quickly to prevent stalling. And then D, downshift to first gear, keeping that clutch fully in until you're ready to take off. So BCD, brake, and then clutch, and then downshift. Okay? So let's watch this short video.
Apply both brakes simultaneously. A split second later, quickly squeeze the clutch lever all the way in. Continue squeezing the clutch lever while shifting into first gear. Brakes, clutch, downshift. Be cool, dude.
Some tips. Keep your head and eyes up. Why? Well, if you're looking down when you come to a stop, the motorcycle may want to fall as you're coming to a stop. So keep your head and eyes up, looking at the vehicle in front of you. Keep the handlebars straight. Why? Well, if you come to a stop with the handlebars slightly turned, the bike's going to want to fall. So keep the handlebars straight when you come to a stop. A lot of beginning riders, when they're getting back in line, they come to a stop with the handlebars turned and they fall. They go, why did I fall? Well, the handlebars were not straight. So you want to keep those handlebars straight when you come to a stop. How much stopping power is in that front brake? At least 70%. It's going to be higher in sport bikes. But why so much power in that front brake? Well, think about it. When you apply the front brakes, the weight's going forward. Okay, so that's why you want that extra power in that front brake there. So again, come to a stop, squeeze the front brake lever in as you simultaneously press down on the rear brake pedal. Use both brakes simultaneously to slow down and stop. Unless you're in stop and go traffic. If you're in stop and go traffic, you may want to use just the front brake. Okay? But as a general rule, both brakes simultaneously. So remain in first gear while you stop, in case you need to make a quick getaway. Because if you're in neutral and you're waiting for the light to change from red to green, if you look in your mirror and you see a car behind you and it doesn't look like it's going to stop, driver's not paying attention, well, what do you need to do to get out of the way? Well, you need to pull in the clutch, downshift the first gear, and hope that the motorcycle gets in the first gear, because sometimes it's a little bit tricky to do it. But bang, you could be a hood ornament by then. So if you're in first gear and you look in that mirror and you see that car may not stop, well, all you need to do is roll on the throttle and ease out the clutch, and bang, you make that quick getaway. Okay? Don't stop too close to the vehicle in front of you. Always leave yourself an out. You don't want to end up as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And if you keep stalling when you come to a stop, what's the problem? You're not pulling in a clutch lever before you come into a stop. Okay? Again, if you have any questions about stopping, write them down, and we'll discuss them on Tuesday night during the live online class. Okay, let's do a quick review to wrap up this session. So what's the acronym for starting a motorcycle? Okay, find CC. What you want to make sure is off. The key, because if you leave the key on, you're going to burn the battery out and kill it, and that's not a good thing for us. Then we got to go out and replace the battery or jump the battery. So make sure you turn the key off, because if you leave the key on during the break, either myself or one of my instructors, we're going to take the key out of the ignition and we're going to put it in our pocket. And you're not going to get it back until you sing Mary Had a Little Lamb. So if you don't know the words, you better Google it. We usually get 1 or 2 students in every class. Okay? So make sure you turn that key off. What's that acronym for turning? Slur. And what does it mean? Slow, look, lean, and roll. When? Well before the entrance to the turn. What do we do to level it off before leaning that motorcycle? Again, rolling that throttle slightly. So we slow down with both brakes, or maybe we roll off the throttle, or maybe we downshift to a lower gear. We slow down before the entrance to the turn, well before the entrance to the turn. And now that we slow down, again, the motorcycle is tilted forward, the weight is shifted forward, and we want to level that motorcycle off so we have equal weight on both the front tire and the rear tire. So we have to raise that, level it off, and the way we level it off is you give it a little bit of throttle to level that bike off, and then you go into the turn, you lean into the turn. So we're going to roll on that throttle slightly just before we lean that motorcycle. First thing we do, when we shift gears, roll off the throttle. Again, you want to lower the RPMs first. If you're in first, how do you shift to second gear? Again, lift the gear shift lever all the way up quickly, once, and then quickly release it. And if you snap it up all the way, it bypasses neutral, which is between first and second gear. If you're in third, how do you get to second? Well, again, press the gear shift lever down once, and you go from second gear to first, and you'll bypass neutral. Again, lift up to go to a higher gear, and press down to go to a lower gear. That's the way they set it up. So up, higher gear, down, lower gear. And again, you can only shift 1 gear at a time. And again, every time you lift up, you go up 1 gear. And every time you press down, you go down 1 gear. Phrase for stopping, BCD, be cool dude, which means what? B's for brakes, C, clutch, D, downshift to first gear. Okay? What gear? First. All right. We'll see you Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Be safe out there. We'll see you soon.